Welcome back to the next installment of the Substack Live series, Starting from Zero. Now, today we started with the title that it was going to be it's not about the midlife reset, but maybe an evolution. But the conversation is going to actually change. And so, if anybody has been watching the conversation that we've had earlier in the week, me and Nat have been speaking to each other about doing an interview here today. We were planning out exactly what we were going to say and sort of like just chatting about what it could include. And I said, hey, here's my telephone number. If you need it, like just give me a call and we can chat everything through. And then the message came back and she was like, wait, do you live on Long Island? And I was like, I do. Where do you live? And it just so happens that we live 7 minutes away from each other, 8 minutes if there's traffic. And
Yes.
the very next day you came into the studio, we were able to hug and meet in person. We posted the picture here on Substack, and it just shows what magic is available to you just from a message, just from connecting and having that conversation. So that's going to be part of what we're going to be speaking about today. But also, Nat, it's just such a pleasure to welcome you here. I'd love to
Thank you.
introduce you. You are our midlife transformation strategist. And so I want to dive into that a little bit further, because a lot of the conversations that I know that I've done within the magazine and a lot of the conversations that take place online, when they speak about midlife, it also then automatically goes to a conversation about things like menopause and reinvention and all of those elements. But that's not just part of the story for you. There's a whole story that you've just blown me away with, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come here today and share that with us. So I'd love to hand over to you, but so could you give us an introduction to what it is that you're doing, what the reset is, but also what's brought you to this point, to the history, to now where we are in the present?
Sure. Well, thank you for the warm welcome. And I have to say that we've met in person now twice since we messaged each other, and it's been great. I love the fact that you were so close, and I was joking around right before we went live, telling you that when I told one of my friends that I was going over to meet you, they're like, "Are you going alone?" And I was like, "Of course I'm going alone because." It's safe. And, that's actually, I think, one of the great things about Substack is, and I've been explaining this to people, like, you have a sense of who you're interacting with. Some of these people, like, we feel like we know them intimately. So just meeting in person is just like the natural next step. So, we met, it was great. We posted our pictures. And before I go further, I do want to say thank you so kindly for your generosity, yours and Jackie's, and doing that headshot. I really didn't go in there. If I went in thinking I was getting a headshot, it would have been a whole different story. But sometimes sometimes natural things happen. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm so grateful. And I'll actually touch on that picture because it really played a significant role for me this week. So about the midlife reset, didn't start as the midlife reset. It started from a place of pain and confusion and anguish, and it really was back in October of last year. I was suddenly told that I was losing my job at the end of the year, and I really needed to cope. I didn't know what to do. I was taken by surprise. That actually turned out to be the biggest blessing that's ever happened to me. And it's put me to this place where I'm at right now. And I am absolutely thrilled to be where I am. So, Substack was just the place that I went to and I started writing because I didn't know what else to do. And through that writing, I discovered a couple of things. There were a lot of people who were in the same situation.
Yeah.
People were very open and very welcoming. And I built this community that I am so grateful for. Like, I am thankful every day for the community that I've built, the people that I've met, um, the connections that I've made, and also the purpose that I started feeling just from writing. So that's really the origin of the midlife reset. And initially when I started the newsletter, I it didn't have that name. It was like Gen XYZ because I was trying to make a connection across, the generations in the workforce. And I thought that's where my voice was. And it actually turned out that midlife became my thing. And as I continued to write and grow and build on Substack, something really strange started to happen, and strange in a good way. Um, I started to feel more confident, more alive, more filled with purpose. And as I, communicated with my readers, and whether it's in DM or in the comments, it just became really apparent that there's a whole community of women out there, just looking to live like better lives. And it hit me, and I was feeling the same thing. And I'm like, okay, well, at that time, I'm 52. I turned 52 in November of last year. So there, my Substack, I started it technically 10 days. I was 51, and then I turned 52. And I love it. Like, I love being 52. I love the confidence that I found. I love the purpose and joy. And that's my mission. And that is like my message. So my tagline is, well, it's cheers to the middle, but my motto is really, midlife is not the beginning of the end. It is the beginning into the best chapters of your life, because there's so much experience and such a wealth of knowledge that we've accumulated throughout those years. And a lot of times it was built from pain, from insecurity, from anxiety. And while those are all negative things, I like to turn it into a positive thing because it got me to where I'm at. So in a nutshell, I write for anyone who is like me, who likes to think midlife positive. And I'm also here for everyone else who thinks that it's too late, that they can't start over. Um, Midlife is the end. And I'm here to tell you, no, it's just the beginning.
It's fantastic, and also there's a few things that you mentioned there that I'd love to just again come back with some insights on as well, because you were talking about this one, how you found confidence, because actually along the way, when you're in a career or in a role that actually you're not in alignment with, it sucks away your confidence, because you end up doubting yourself because you're living through somebody else's expectations. But also the other thing that you were saying about was actually all of this experience that you accumulate from the very day that you're educated, you start a career, you progress in your career as well, of remembering that everything that you've done is available to you at any given moment. And I think that that's what I'd love to touch about in your, like, the career that you've had, because you've been hugely successful in that, and I'd love to sort of like touch on that before we go on to the next part of the conversation. What did your career include?
Sure. So I have spent over 35 years in corporate healthcare,
Yeah.
and I started like ground up, worked my way up to a very senior leadership role. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do. Got my MBA, did all of the trainings, did all of the educations. I progressed very nicely throughout those years. And as soon as you get to one position, you strive to get to the next level, and so forth. And I somewhere along the line I realized that I didn't love it. I didn't love it, but I loved everything about it, if that makes sense. I loved the title. I loved, the money, and I have to being very honest. I loved those aspects, but inside I felt completely empty, like I was almost just doing it on autopilot. And I was doing a great job. I will say that, because I consistently got promoted, and that's not coming from a space of being braggy. It's just a space of growth. And I kept thinking that maybe the next title would give me that sense of fulfillment, that sense of joy. And the funny thing is, and we spoke a little bit about this when we met. My previous job, not the one that I just left, the one before that, we were given stretch assignments, and the stretch assignments are something completely out of your wheelhouse. So they want to put you in a completely different role, and that's really where my coaching and mentoring really, really developed. I mean, I did that for 6 years, like nonstop, and that was on top of my regular role as a senior director. And so I adored it. I loved working with, helping people, helping employees, working with patients and their families. And I found out that, through that, um, I was meant to do something like this. And that's where my joy sprung. And so I feel like with identities, it's like you could start out one way, but it evolves into something else. And I love that, though, because I feel like that's why we're human. Because if we were meant to do the same thing day in, day out, we never grow and we never evolve. So that's kind of where my career took me. And in the last 4 years, it was a toxic work environment. I really took that job completely because it was remote. And I still interacted with my colleagues. I did some development and some coaching in that, but it's not the same when it's not, you're not, day to day, you're not interacting with them. But I found the same pattern. I spent half of my day coaching and helping everyone. Someone had a problem, they would come to me, and it was always the same thing. It's been that same pattern since I was 22 years old in the workforce. Like, people are coming to me, and I that's how I decided this is what I love, and this part of it is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Incredible. And so I don't know if you can see the comments, but Barbara's just said to you that there's so many women that need to hear this. You're such an inspiration to women. So
I
I just
don't
wanted to take that as a huge compliment to the voice that you have in this space and beyond. And I think that what feels really important as part of the midlife reset that we're talking about is actually the like who are you without the title becomes exciting rather than daunting, because then when the title's not there anymore, like you become the woman that you've always been destined to be,
Yes.
and you get to put any title you want at the end of that or before that, or you can just strip it completely and just be you. And I think there's a real beautiful pathway of going in, of like you get to be now completely you outside of a corporate role, and actually you're living it for others and sharing it through the publication that you have to be able to inspire other people to do that, and sort of and just find their own, like don't put identity onto a corporate title, but actually have the freeing of knowing that being you is more than enough, and is even more valuable than all of that. But I'd love to ask you, from that transition, what did you have to unlearn to go from what you were doing within corporate to now you doing the midlife reset? What's the unlearnings of that?
So in that corporate role, there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of toxicity, and a lot of it drove me to a point of insecurity. And so what I really needed to unlearn was all of the negative things I told myself in those 4 years. You're not good enough. You shouldn't speak up. Maybe you think something, but no one wants to hear it. So I think most of what I needed to unlearn was just like the negative voice. I needed to shut it up, and I just needed to tell it like get lost, because I didn't go into that role being that person, but for progressive years of being in that environment, I guess it's like a tree in a storm. If the wind keeps battering it, eventually it will bend. It's not going to break. And I know I didn't break, but I bent a lot. So I had to unlearn a lot of that. And I love believing in myself. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves. It's free, but that confidence
Yeah.
is unlike anything, because I feel like I'm unstoppable. And had I not been confident, Sarah, I probably wouldn't have just hopped in my car and driven over to the studio, because I would have sat there and said, "Oh my gosh, well, are they going to like me? Are they not going to like me?" And I said to myself, I'm like, "All right, I mean, we had a great rapport, and what's the worst? Like we get there and we don't vibe, and I'm happy to say that we did. So win-win." But I had to really put myself into the shoes of, you can do this, like, and it's not too late. And another thing to unlearn, right, is the subscription to midlife. This is not really corporate, but this is just, I think, age, that, oh well, you're 52 and it's too late. And no, like, so there's good unlearned behavior, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And so, one of the things that was, as she was talking, I was thinking about this self trust, is that there's something within us, like trusting our gut instincts on things, of being able to really trust what that is and what you want to do and go forward with that. Because if you didn't have the confidence to trust yourself, like, what are you holding yourself back from, is one of the things there. And the other element of just the evidence of you getting in your car and coming over to meet us in person, is that this shows that showing up of who you are and being true and authentic to what you're saying in your message, or the even the photography that you put out there, the images of yourself, like, and the identity and the words and the conversations that you're having. If you are 100% true to who you are, that means that you should be able to be welcomed into this studio and it be an extension of this conversation now. And we're happy because we've had that come to reality, and it's proof of evidence of, like, just being you is exactly perfect in
Thank you.
any single way. And I think that it's that. So I want to say to you, like, thank you for trusting that
Oh,
everything was as what you thought it would be.
yeah.
I think that that's the point, is that so many people self-doubt the words that they're putting into the world. Previously, on other platforms, I know that I have done and written a post, I've posted it and I've deleted it 1 minute afterwards, because I doubted, because I thought
Yeah.
it would be judged. I thought, I'd be like, what are you doing putting that out there? That's what, or whatever it would be. But that's the community that we get to create here on Substack, is being generous, is being kind, is being, like, really engaging of what you would say literally over a coffee
Yeah.
together. That you It's not just a love this, oh so true. Actually, no,
Yeah.
continue that conversation of it, because look where it takes you. It evolves into more conversations, more community, and more confidence of you putting what it is that you're doing out to the world. So just, like, congratulations. I think that's a really good place to start there. And I think that I'd love for you to know, or not to know, I'd love for you to share with everybody about your version of starting from zero, of, like, what you did starting out on Substack that you felt was helpful to really find your people here.
Sure. So, like I said, I started and I had no idea what I was writing, what my niche was, because everyone says find a niche, and I don't think you can find a niche until you've been writing for, you give it some time, because something evolves. And when I really found what I was passionate about, it's funny that you mentioned the articles that you write, but one of the things that I put out there was I'm betting on myself. I'm like, I came here to Substack and I will be successful, and all bets are, I'm putting everything on me. And I also posted that there's a level of delusion, which is good because you need that. You need to dream big. You need to think so big and really know that it's possible. And you
Yeah.
put it out there. And I think there's like a saying, like, it's like don't underestimate the power of a delusional person, because they'll go all out to do stuff and to accomplish things. And that's really my motto. And it sounds crazy, but it's just like, why not?
Mm,
Think huge, think aspirational thoughts. Like, don't put yourself in a box. And that was where I was coming from, like in corporate. Like, I felt like I was very boxed in. I felt like there were limitations. And one of the things that I absolutely, I think, loathed was the fact that I gave not, we all do this because we have no choice. This is how the world works. But when you're in a corporate environment or you're in another environment like that, you are putting all of the control into somebody else's hands.
mm,
And for me, just that concept of not relinquishing control of my life, that's where I started. That was like the origin, because I love working, but I want to manage my time. I want my own schedule. Um, I Another goal of mine is to live every day to its fullest. And I have to say, for the past, I probably 25 years of my life, I've been the person that, I don't even know what Monday to Friday looks like. It's a blur. I can't, there are countdowns. There's countdown to, the end of the day. Then there's anxiety. There was insomnia. So I was guilty of like living to get to Friday. And then there's like a running joke in my friend group. No one invites me to anything on a Sunday. I think now I'm going to get invitations, but up until last year, everyone knew. Like, they're like, don't even ask Nat to do anything on a Sunday, because I had such anxiety and Sunday scaries that, it
mm,
spilled over into the week. So
mm.
now it's like, I want to live, I'm reclaiming like every day is a day well lived. And I've had that since I left the workforce. And I will always say I'm super respectful of the privilege that I have to be able to do this. And I understand that it's not possible and for everyone to be in this situation. And I'm super grateful to my husband because he's uber supportive of me in pursuing this. And I'm thankful. And I respect everyone who is not in the current situation that I'm in. But what I'm also here to say is that there are other ways that we can learn to appreciate life every day of the week. And again, that's another part of the midlife reset and what I do. It's like, I'm not telling you to go quit your job and to just turn your life upside down, but I am guiding you and I'm giving you a roadmap into living a more fulfilled, purposeful type of life where you enjoy each day. And so that's where it all, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it's stunning. And so when you were talking about like your outlook on everything, it instantly reminded me of something that my business partner Jackie, who you met, says. And she says that she approaches everything being foolishly optimistic. And so I've got to credit her with that quote, because I think we should frame it and put it on the wall. Because what if you were just foolishly optimistic about everything that you were going into, that it just like anything was possible? And I think that it's great that you're now sort of in a position that some days can become your treasured memories day now, instead of it being something that you were nervous about. And I think that there's such sort of a contrast of doing that, of like you get to decide when that reset is and how you do it, because that becomes your choice. And so I mean that side of everything, it's what can somebody expect on the roadmap that you do with somebody. And also, if somebody is at the start of their midlife reset right now, what would you tell them?
So if you're with the way that I developed my process was really through what I was living, because
Mm,
I mapped out, I wrote so much that I was able to kind of map out, and that's what led me to create like my 7 step framework, which I lovingly called 7R reset.
mm,
And I do have to tell you quickly how this happened. I was writing a lot about it. I was speaking to a lot of people about it. And one morning at 4 a.m., I woke up and I had a glass of water and, a napkin under the water. And I tell you, Sarah, I don't even know how it happened, but I had to write these 7 steps. And I wrote it, and I wrote it in that sequence of what it is now. And I went back to sleep, and I woke up thinking like I dreamt the whole thing. And I looked at this napkin, and there it is. And laid out in the exact sequence of how it happened to me. So the place that you start, and I do write some of my Substack articles about this, it's you have to recognize what it is that you're going through, because a lot of times we don't really know like why we feel the way that we feel. We do know that there's um, I guess like a disconnect, or you should be so happy you have all of these things, like, or you've gotten, the career, you've gotten the life, the house, whatever it is, and you wake up still like I did, like I was not fulfilled, and I just couldn't figure that out. So for anyone who is on the reset journey or thinking of it, you start with recognition, and you have to be super honest to really put it out there, and you don't have to tell anyone else. And I encourage journaling. I actually created an app. It's sort of a development, but it's geared towards that, because you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, you're never going to achieve
mm,
anything further, because lie, everyone does it. We make excuses. We say, well, maybe it's me, maybe tomorrow will be different. But at some point you have to sit there and you have to be accountable to yourself. And I think once that starts, once you do that one piece, and this is why this is the foundation for everything else in the reset, once you do recognize, you are able to look at it, process it, and then say, okay, the next step is release. What
mm,
part of this am I willing to release? And you go through that exercise and so forth. And, once you release what needs to be released, the beauty of it, and I'm going to steal Jackie's analogy because I love it so much. When we were there, Jackie, we were speaking, and Jackie said it's like, and it's the photographer in her, that it's like when you take a Polaroid, you know, first of all, it's just blank. And then you start to see the development happen. Oh gosh, I think some dust. Hold on. I'm having construction.
oh,
Mm, the dust is flying. But you see that development and you see the picture coming into focus. So that's how the 7R works, because you start with recognition and you have a piece of the picture. Then you start to, you release and you
yeah,
see a bigger part and so forth. And you get to that point where you get to your reset, and it's phenomenal.
yeah. Are you
So
okay?
sorry.
That's
Yes. It's
okay.
a
Yes,
little like tickle.
dust in the air, but it's such a good way for somebody to create their own framework as well of knowing that what works for them, and that actually if there's something that isn't if it isn't already out there, then one of the themes of the conversation that we've had this week is that you create it for yourself. You create something that works for you, and I think that that's just such a good system for you to live through, that you're creating something that you can always go back to, that you can always have something, you can have a check-in point for everything that you're wanting to do and wanting to
Absolutely.
create. And so, yeah, I mean, this has just been such a valuable conversation, and I just want to say thank you for sharing these insights with us. And
Of
so,
course.
anything that you would, if you had just one quote or one takeaway tip that you could leave with somebody today, what would that tip be?
Well, midlife is just the beginning. So
Yeah.
if you feel that, your best years have been behind you, I'm here to tell you that they're not. And there's
Mhm.
so much ahead of you, and just go for it. And again, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's a little cliche, but it's how I've been living every day of my life, and I have zero regrets. So that's
Well,
my message.
so cool. And you've also had such an incredible career, and you can see how everything's building for you here on Substack with sharing your articles. And at the underneath this live video, when it gets published, will be our full article of this with your tips, how somebody can subscribe to you, and more information about everything that you're doing over on your article and on publication. So if you have any questions, make sure that you add them into the article notes section, and we'll both be in there to answer any of your questions. And if we're not already connected, make sure that we are connected, and just know that you don't have to be nervous about sending a message to us. We will be there, we will respond, and you'll
Absolutely.
always be greeted with a very, very warm welcome. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that has joined us for the session today. And I think
Thank you.
Barbara has also just messaged saying that women need authentic, genuine and real women who have walked their journey to support them. And we've definitely done that. So I think that let's continue the conversation on it. The more that we can talk about it, the more people that would have more confidence to chase after the life that they are just born to deserve. So on that note, thank you, Nat, for joining us today. And
Thank you.
pleasure that we've got to meet in person as well as here on Substack as well. And then I will actually be back tomorrow for another session that will continue the conversation about leaving corporate to create a life beyond what your title is. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you again very, very soon. Thank you, Nat, and thank you to everybody that's watching.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.